Good morning. Today's chapter of our book is called Making the Best of Things. Hear that, Grandad? The siren going at the fire station makes my stomach go up and down. That's the rotor going round. The rotor? The rotor sucks in air, then shoves it out again, and that makes the noise going up and down, and that makes your stomach go up and down. When I was a fireman, said Grandad, we didn't have a siren. We rang a brass bell on the fire engine. We had one bell on top of the fire station to call us for a fire and another on top of the engine. We ran to the station, jumped aboard, and away we went, hanging on with one hand, pulling on our helmets and coats and trousers and boots with the other, shouting and donging the bell to tell everyone to get out of our way. What sort of fire engine? When I joined the fire brigade, we had a brass Silsby hand pump on a wagon pulled by two big horses, and everyone wore brass helmets. The horses too, same as ours, but with holes in for their ears to stick through. We were very proud of our brass helmets. Every spare minute between fires, we sat in a row outside the fire station, men and horses, polishing them with brasso. We polished the bell and the brass pump on the engine and the big bell up on the top of the station roof. And the nozzle on the hose, that was brass and had to be polished too. And the buttons on our uniforms and the buckles on our belts. Gosh, it must have looked shiny. When we were galloping to a fire, the horses and the firemen all wearing their brass helmets, shouting, neighing, waving their axes, ringing the bell. People put their hands over their eyes and their fingers in their ears. Did the horses have axes too, Grandad? They wanted them, but horses don't wear belts. Anyway, they clanged their brass helmets against each other and struck sparks with their iron shoes, and the bell on the fire engine rang and everybody yelled. Putting out a fire was much more fun in those days. More fun? Well, that's what the firemen are there for, you know, to have fun. Did the horses have fun too? More fun than us. Did Granny know that you enjoyed putting out fires? Well, that was the trouble. What happened? She found out that we'd painted across the front of our fire engine. Huh? Grandad looked behind the big hydrangea. What did you paint across the front of your fire engine? He put his hand over his mouth and whispered, Hurrah! You painted hurrah. Shh, or she'll hear. Across the front of your fire engine. In letters, a metre high. Your grandmother didn't approve of it at all. Why not? She said we were supposed to be putting out fires, not having fun, and she said it was high time that I grew up and learned to behave myself and get a proper job. When I told Granny that Grandad had been telling me what Grandad had been telling me, she sniffed and said to hold the other end of the sheet so she could fold it. I wanted to have fun too, said Granny. I wanted to ride on the engine, ring the bell and squirt water on the flames, but your grandfather said a woman couldn't be a fireman, so I told him, that's it. You find yourself a proper job that isn't any fun. I fixed him. So neither of you had any fun. Granny folded the sheet and nodded. Life's like that, dear. You have to make the best of things. I found Grandad in the garden. Granny said she fixed you for telling her she couldn't be a fireman. Fixed me? The next time the bell rang for a fire, my uniform had vanished. Had Granny hidden it? She'd put it on and run down the road and jumped on the fire engine, yelling louder than anybody else. Well, they must have known it wasn't you. Well, with the brass helmet and the trousers and the jacket, she did look just like me. By the time I gave up looking for my uniform and ran down to the fire station, they'd put out the fire. Your grandmother took off the big brass helmet so everyone could see it was her, and the other firemen laughed and said she was a better fireman than me. Oh, that was a bit mean. You think that's mean? What about this? Your grandmother and her friends bought their own fire engine, one with a petrol motor instead of horses, and they raced us to the next fire, and they had it put out before we could even get there. We were so embarrassed. What did you do? I knew it was no good trying to beat your grandmother, so I made the best of things and gave up being a fireman. Once I wasn't a fireman, your grandmother didn't want to be one either. What happened to the horses? I mean, after you got the lorries for the fire engines? Well, they were put out to grass. and you used to see them mooching around the paddocks, still wearing their big brass helmets. Of course, that was years ago. Did the horses grow old and die? Well, I suppose they did, but life's like that. You've got to make the best of things. That's what Granny says. I know, I learnt it from her.